Hey up guys, I'm Mason, the blind wrestling fan, and this is the WITD Survivor Series 2020 review. If you enjoy this episode, you know what to do. Survivor Series 2020 is in the books, it's done and dusted, and it was actually a pretty decent pay-per-view. There wasn't any real massive letdowns. There was one bit in particular that I wasn't a massive fan of. Can you guess what it was? You probably can. But for the most part, I definitely feel like it was one of the better pay-per-views, or at least main roster pay-per-views of this year. There's lots to get through, so let's get to it. The show opens up with the men's Survivor Series match, and I really enjoyed this one. The commentary did an absolutely cracking job, and I really didn't feel like I missed anything at all, and there was actually some pretty cool stuff. So, we get a pretty fast back and forth between Styles and Jey Uso to start off until Jey tags out after a Samoan drop. Eventually, Rollins comes in, but he's got other things on his mind and he's playing silly buggers, so he offers himself up as a sacrifice to Sheamus, tells Sheamus to do his part for the greater good, and Sheamus delivers a bro kick and eliminates Rollins. Team Smackdown argue amongst themselves a little bit, they're thrown off the game by Rollins' actions, and then Braun steamrollers through them all. We get this evenly matched back and forth between Keith Lee and Otis, and I can't really decide whether this was really good for Otis or bad for Keith Lee. I can't decide whether it makes Keith look bad or Otis look really good, the fact that Keith really struggled against Otis here. Then a super aggressive Owens just takes it to AJ Styles. He delivers what commentary describes as a massive back body drop. He gets a tilt-a-whirl backbreaker, starts doling out stunners to members of Team Raw, but then he's eliminated by a phenomenal forearm. Not long afterwards, Baron is eliminated by a floating bro. We get a bit of back and forth between Braun and Otis. Otis actually manages to slam Braun, give him the caterpillar, and he's going for the Vader bomb, but Riddle runs interference and Braun delivers a power slam to eliminate Otis. This leaves Jey all on his own. It's 5 against 1, and at this point I'm wondering what's going to happen. Is he going to get a couple of eliminations? Is he going to get eliminated pretty quickly? This isn't going to be good for him. Roman is not going to be happy about this either way. But Jey tries to put up a fight, but as he's going for a splash on AJ Styles, he doesn't notice that Keith Lee has tagged in, and he gets caught and eats a spirit bomb and is eliminated. In the end, despite no one from Team Raw wanting to accept AJ as the team captain, it seems that he knew exactly what needed to be done to secure the victory. All of the infighting paid off, and by the time it came to the actual pay-per-view, they were ready to work as a fully functioning team. I did not know what was going on that first week when they had them in matches against each other. I said that it wasn't good for team building, this isn't good for Team Raw's morale, but they actually got it all out of the way and it paid off pretty well, so it was a pretty good story in my opinion. The fact that Rollins got himself eliminated was pretty confusing, but I liked it. If the rumours are true and he's going to be gone for a few months after this, it's actually a really intriguing exit, and when he comes back and explains why he did what he did, it'll actually have some pretty cool motivation. As for Jey Uso, I think it speaks volumes that a year ago, if this had been the case, if he'd have been the last member of Team Smackdown, I'd have thought, you're done mate. But because of all the work that they've done building him up over the last few months, I thought that he was at least going to get a couple of eliminations. I thought that he'd get rid of Riddle, Sheamus, maybe even AJ before getting eliminated by Braun. Unfortunately, it didn't work out like that, but that was because they wanted to tell a different story. It was at least believable, and I think that that shows how much they've achieved with Jey Uso in a really short time. The Street Profits versus The New Day was next, and to be honest, this was the match that I was looking forward to the least. These sort of back and forth, in and out tag team matches are so confusing to someone like me, especially when it comes to having Tom Phillips on commentary. And it's not just me talking trash, he does actually let me down, as demonstrated in this match. So, Before the match, the Profits cut an overwhelmingly hyped up promo. I wish that I could see what these guys do in the ring, because as characters, I just can't get behind them. They're so scrappy-do, they're so over the top and hyped up, I just can't get behind them. No offence to them as actual people, but as characters, I just can't get behind them. So they do a pretty good job in the opening, but New Day managed to gain control and do a good job of utilising quick tags, beating down and isolating Montez Ford. They hit him with a gutbuster, and commentary put over the fact that they're doing this to take away his core strength and make sure that he can't hit that frog splash. After a while of getting beaten down, he manages to hit a DDT and tags to Dawkins, who comes in and runs wild. He hits this move and Tom doesn't call it. He just shouts, "I've never seen that from Dawkins before," and Graves has to do Tom's job for him, saying that it was some sort of double underhook neck breaker type thing. Then the Profits hit a double team move and Tom doesn't call it. Graves doesn't save him this time, so I have no idea what they did. Eventually, Ford gets hit with the Midnight Hour, but he kicks out, and commentary put over the fact that Big E is usually one of the team members that hits that move, and the reason that Ford might have kicked out is because they don't have the added power of Big E. Ford ends up hitting a frog splash, but he can't cover because of the damage that had been done to his ribs. Eventually, like a cheeky bastard, he hits Kofi with Trouble in Paradise, but Xavier gets him with a gutbuster. And then in the closing of the match, Profits hit a blockbuster from the top rope for the win. Despite the fact that this was the match that I was looking forward to the least, I actually think that it ended up being one of the best matches of the night. It was fast paced, it was punchy, there were some cool spots. I liked the story of the New Day being the experienced veterans trying to shut down the hot up and comers, trying to beat down and isolate Ford, with Dawkins being the powerhouse of the Street Profits, and also playing up on the fact that Dawkins and Woods have known each other for ages. It was just really enjoyable, and it just breezed by. I felt like it was done in no time. One of my favourite parts was Kofi going to the outside and having a look in one of the solo cups and revealing that there was nothing inside, which made me laugh because I thought of the Street Profits as one of those guys at a house party that wanders around pretending he's really drunk, even though you know that he hasn't even had one drink yet. And then I thought about it and realised that their gimmick isn't that they drink, it's that they want the smoke, so it makes sense that there was nothing in the cup because you don't smoke out of the cup. Sami Zayn versus Bobby Lashley was next, and honestly I felt like this was the worst match of the night. It just felt a little bit like padding, like time wasting, and I just wasn't that into it. Sami tries for a clothesline in the opening moments, but Lashley just powers through it and levels Sami. He sends him into the corner with a strong Irish whip, gives him a beel. Sami tries to get to the outside, but the Hurt Business, who have accompanied Lashley to the match, close in on Sami and he's forced to get back in the ring. He manages to turn the tide momentarily with an elbow drop to the back of Lashley's neck, but Lashley kicks out at one. Sami has the guts to try a suplex on Lashley, but Lashley counters with a stalling vertical suplex. Sami fakes vertigo and tries a roll up on Lashley, but it doesn't work. On the outside, Sami avoids Lashley, who posts himself and almost gets counted out, but doesn't. And then on the inside, Lashley hits Sami with something, but Cole doesn't say what it is, and shortly afterwards he locks Sami in the Hurt Lock. Not much more to say about that. We all knew Lashley was going to win. There was a little bit of Sami Zayn shenanigans, Cole and Graves going backwards and forwards about conspiracy theories. There was a little bit at the end where they said that the Hurt Business tried to trip Sami up and may have or may have not. I can't say because I didn't see, but either way, who bloody cares, because it was a Sami Zayn Bobby Lashley match and we all knew that Sami wasn't coming out with the win here. Backstage, Jay tries to offer an explanation to Roman, who isn't having any of it. He is not happy with Jay for losing the Survivor Series match. Jimmy tries to stand up for Jay, but Roman basically tells him to get lost because he's got nothing to do with this. He tells Jay that he lost because he couldn't control his team. He can't control his team because they don't fear him. They don't fear him because they don't respect him. And if they don't respect Jay, they don't respect Roman, which means that they don't respect the family. And if Jay can't make them respect the family, then he has no place in it, and tells him that he's disappointed and to get lost. Absolutely brutal from Roman here. He is such an arsehole at this point. Next up was Sasha Banks versus Asuka, and this one was more like it. This is what I like. Technical stuff, submissions, striking, back and forth, not knowing who's going to win. It was just a well-told story. We didn't know whether Sasha was going to be able to beat Asuka, considering that Asuka's had her number in the past. Is Carmella going to get involved? There was just a lot to like about this, and it was miles ahead of the match that came before it. It was all Sasha early on. She starts working Asuka's arm, and it doesn't take her long to look for the bank statement, but Asuka avoids it. Asuka gets a small flurry of offense, but Sasha pretty quickly gets back on top, starts working the arm, and gets a backstabber for a 2 count. Asuka gets Sasha in an ankle lock. She nails her in the ribs, hits a sliding kick for a cover. Sasha eventually manages to lock in an abdominal stretch, and she manages to convert it into an octopus stretch, according to Corey Graves. Later on the outside, Sasha comes off the barricade for a Meteora, but Asuka counters with a double knees of her own, which I really liked. They both almost get counted out, but they just about manage to beat the count. Sasha ends up hitting a backstabber again, and that gets her a 2 count. She looks for the bank statement again. Asuka avoids it, looks for the Asuka lock, but it doesn't work, so she hits a double knees. Then they go back and forth, trading pinfall attempts, and eventually Sasha manages to catch Asuka in a surprise roll up and gets the win. Honestly, usually I'm not the biggest Sasha Banks fan, and that's got nothing to do with Sasha as a person or even her performance. Just within kayfabe, her character is one that I love to hate because I find it more fun. But this match was great and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was probably the match of the night, and I actually think that it was the only one out of the bunch that made me really wish that I could just see and enjoy the in-ring action. I'm really surprised that Carmella didn't get involved, but I'm also glad because it was just good to have these two go back and forth and kick the crap out of each other and have Sasha come out with the win, and I'm looking forward to seeing what she's got to offer now on next week's Smackdown. The Women's Survivor Series team match was next, and this match was the one that had the bit that I really hated in. It was the finish, of course, but we'll get to that when we actually get to it. There was a lot of fast tagging in and out to start the match off. I really like the bit where Natty and Bianca do squats in stereo, and then Bianca does a standing moonsault just to showcase how athletic she is. Nia comes in and multiple members of Team Smackdown try taking her down, but it doesn't work. Lana ends up tagging herself in. She takes on multiple members of Team Smackdown. Eventually, she wants to tag back out, and when she does, she literally gets put on the naughty step. Nia and Shayna tell her to stand on the ring steps away from the apron and not do anything until she's told. Peyton Royce hits a superplex, and when she gets back in the ring, she hits Bayley with the Deja Vu to eliminate her. Then Peyton Royce gets eliminated by the sharpshooter. Natalya gets eliminated by Lacey Evans delivering the women's right. We get a cool spot where Lacey Evans hits a top rope Spanish fly to Bianca Belair. The Riot Squad show off their tag team synergy, utilising quick tags to try and isolate Nia. Liv hits a double knees and Ruby hits a Riot kick. Unfortunately, Ruby ends up in the Kirifuda clutch. She ends up collapsing and happens to pin Shayna, but the ref's distracted, he doesn't see it, and by the time he notices, Shayna isn't being pinned anymore and Ruby ends up eliminated. This fires up Liv Morgan. She goes absolutely mental for a little bit, getting in on fence and manages to eliminate Lacey Evans with a crucifix bomb. Unfortunately for the Riot Squad, it doesn't take long for Liv Morgan to be eliminated by a Samoan drop from Nia Jax. Bianca isn't afraid, she goes right after Nia Jax, showcasing that athleticism once more by doing a backflip right over her. Eventually, Bianca gets put in the Kirifuda clutch. She breaks out of it, but gets locked back in it almost immediately. She powers up to her feet and marches to the ropes. She should get the rope break, but Shayna refuses to break the hold and she's disqualified. Bianca and Nia go at it a bit more. They're fighting on the outside. Bianca's powering, sending Shayna into the barricade, into the ring steps, and they eventually get counted out. Which means that we were all right and Lana was actually the sole survivor in the shittest way possible. Weeks and weeks of build, Lana getting put through tables again and again and again and again. People shouting that she's being buried, that it's some sort of underhanded punishment for the fact that her husband had the audacity to leave the company and go and join AEW. People like me trying to be optimistic, saying no, they're not burying her, they're trying to build her up as a sympathetic babyface. She's going to have a big hero moment at Survivor Series, she'll be the sole survivor and win the match. But no, they just had her stand on the ring steps and then win the match basically by accident, which is even worse than what I thought was going to happen. I had this sneaking suspicion that they were going to put her through a table at the beginning of the match and she'd just be out of it the entire time. But no, they just had her sit on the naughty step and be out of it for the entire time and win the match by accident. Therefore, pissing away weeks and weeks and weeks of build. Egg on my face, that's the last time I tried to be an optimist. After a video package which gave me a chance to calm down after that finish, we get the main event. The big dog, the tribal chief, the head of the table, the Universal Champion Roman Reigns versus the Scottish psychopath, the king of Claymore Country, the WWE Champion Drew McIntyre. This is a match that was built pretty quickly and pretty effectively over the last couple of weeks, and I've been really looking forward to it, and it delivered in my opinion. It started off slow, the feeling out process, both guys trying to see who will make the first move, which ended up being Drew as he hit a pair of shoulder tackles. It starts getting physical after that. Drew hits Roman with a chop and a headbutt, which fires Roman up, and he answers with some big right hands. This gives him control for a little bit and he keeps the pace slow, trying to grind down Drew. He hits him with some knees that commentary describe as looking really brutal, and then delivers a snap suplex for a cover. He then starts delivering vicious elbows to the face of Drew McIntyre. Graves says that this is because he's trying to make McIntyre's eyes swell up so that he can't see, because Joe says, if you can't see, you can't fight. Oh bugger, there goes my chances of being a WWE superstar. Roman hits a clothesline that commentary sell like it was horrific, like it basically took Drew's head off. Drew manages to get back into it though. He explodes out of the corner with a belly-to-belly suplex, a net breaker, kips up, pulls Roman to his feet, but Roman manages to pop off a Samoan drop. Drew avoids a Superman punch and hits a spine buster that Corey Graves is absolutely in love with. He says that it's the best spine buster that he's seen in quite some time. A headbutt from Drew, a boot from Roman, a boot from Drew, and as Roman's going for another clothesline, Drew manages to counter with a future shot DDT for the 2 count. This is where it starts getting really good. Drew is looking for the Claymore, but Roman sees it coming and manages to avoid it. He tries locking in the guillotine, but Drew fights out of that. Roman tries for a spear, but Drew counters into the Kimura lock and holds that in until Reigns manages to get to the ropes. On the outside, Roman puts Drew through the announce table with a Samoan drop, and when Drew gets back to his feet, they have a momentary stare down before Reigns spears Drew through the barricade, I think. Commentary kept calling it a wall, which they don't usually so I don't know what the difference was, but either way, it was a pretty cool spot. Roman gets Drew back in the ring, but Drew kicks out. Roman goes for a spear, Drew counters with a kick, but Reigns gets the spear anyway, and Drew kicks out again. Then Drew actually manages to claymore Reigns, but this sends him into the ref, who takes a spill out of the ring. Cue Jey Uso. He comes out and starts going after Drew. He hits a low blow, a super kick. Roman gets a Superman punch and locks in the guillotine as the new ref comes running out. Drew manages to fight back up to his feet, but only momentarily before he passes out, and Roman picks up the win. Like I said, considering that they only had a couple of weeks to build this match, they got it to the point where I was really excited for it, and it delivered big time in my opinion. Those last couple of minutes where it just started going mental were so enjoyable, and when Drew kicks out of that second spear, I actually went, "Oh my god," out loud, and I was so impressed by it. Plus, the fact that they had Jey Uso get involved keeps Roman's Smackdown story going. It helps Jey get back into Roman's good books, and also leaves it at a point where Roman and Drew can pick this back up again at some point with some good motivation, because Drew can say, "You couldn't beat me without the help of Jey." So it was just all perfectly executed, and I really enjoyed it. Capping off the show was the Undertaker's final farewell, and honestly I don't feel like I'm qualified to talk about this. I haven't been a fan for that long in the grand scheme of things. I only started watching in 2012, and I just don't feel like I can do this segment justice, because I don't have that nostalgic, visceral, emotional connection to the character of The Undertaker that so many other people have. I have a huge amount of respect for Undertaker, for the effect that he's had on the business, the legacy that he leaves behind, the inspiration that he's been for so many wrestlers and fans alike, and whatever happens to him in the future, I wish him the very best, but I'm not going to go through this segment because, like I said, I don't feel like I can do it the emotional justice. Well, that's it for today, guys. If you've got anything to say about Survivor Series 2020, drop them in the comments section and we'll have a chat about it. I'll see you next time. Until then, take care. I'm off, and you should have a good one.